Do you feel like we're going to see a race to the bottom with a lot of these trucks between the F-150, the Ram 1500 that they're having similar problems, and then GM not as much? But do you feel like Ford and Stellantis, Ram, are they going to just try to go after really the bottom feeders, just the value seekers that are trying to buy a truck and just try to get the price as low as possible to get rid of some of this inventory that they're not moving?
As as an area vice president of mine used to remind me, if the customer hasn't said yes yet, you haven't lowered the price enough yet. Yeah, of course it'll be a race to the bottom. Uh, as Ford's inventory starts to stack up, we know what's been happening at Ram, that their inventory has stacked up. They're finally starting to move it again because they've increased the incentives dramatically on some of their pickup trucks and such. They on a corporate level, they have made a concerted effort to bring about programs that help to move these vehicles, whether they be customer incentives or dealer incentives. And the dealer incentives could be a sales objective for a month and something as silly as, and there's a fast start portion to it. So that if you sell X number of these in the first 15 days of the month, we'll give you an extra $500 per vehicle sold when you get to your 100% by the end of the month. So they'll come up with creative ways to give dealers extra money, to encourage dealers to take less from the customer in order to sell the vehicle. So yes, ultimately, anytime there's a situation where vehicles are there's an oversupply, the only way you lessen that supply is to lower the price. So yes, ultimately there will be a race to the bottom.
It's not just a problem with trucks that we're seeing. I mean, I mentioned those Broncos earlier, but there was the cheapest. I always, when I go to these dealerships, I always try to find the cheapest thing on the lot that I can find.
Yes.
And the cheapest thing that I was able to find was a Ford Escape,
Okay.
and it was $36,000. That was the MSRP on it, but it was a 2023.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, so that thing it's in the 30s, and it still has celebrated 2 birthdays. So even at certain price points, there's still no buyers there, because that's in this market. It's not cheap. Don't take my words out of context here.
Yeah.
In this market, though, that's a cheap vehicle for
It is.
a brand new vehicle, and it still celebrated 2 birthdays on that lot.
Well, when you consider that the average transaction price on new vehicles today is, I think, about $47,500. So that vehicle, that Escape, is about $11,000 below the average transaction price today on a new vehicle. Is it where a big portion of the population would like to be? No. I mean, there's 15% of the population that would be interested in a new car if the transaction prices were under $20,000. Well, we know there's very few cars that fit into that. There's the Versa, the Mirage. There's just not a lot out there that you can buy for under $20,000. Well, and nobody wants the Escape.
And nobody wants a Ford Escape.
But that's beside. I mean, listen, nobody wants a Jeep Grand Wagoneer, but they've been able to sell a few of those recently because they put large incentives on them. I get that nobody wants an Escape, but somebody will buy the Escape at the right price for them. So it just seems to me that 5 years ago, the average transaction price on a new vehicle was about $36,000. Today, it's $47,500. And my guess is the sweet spot for most people in this country would be somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000. And the percentage of vehicles that fall into that price range is probably, I'm going to guess, 20 to 25% of all the vehicles out there. And the percentage of the population who says that that's what they want is probably closer to 50 to 60%. So the amount of supply doesn't correlate with the alleged demand that the public is making, and that's because the manufacturers have basically abandoned those folks, because, well, they need to produce all those high profit margin vehicles to underwrite their EV business.
Yeah, we did a video not long ago talking about price points of new vehicles that were under $20,000. So, like 4 or 5 years ago, there were either 20 or 30 vehicles that were offered new for under that $20,000 price point. And this past year, there was one, and they're discontinuing that. It was a Mitsubishi Mirage, but they're
Yes.
doing away with that. So now there are literally zero vehicles with that price point that's under $20,000.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I get it that they don't make as much money when they produce those vehicles. There's not a tremendous amount of people who want those, but somebody has to cater to that audience. Okay. And when all the manufacturers have said, well, it's not going to be me, well, it doesn't leave anybody. Somebody's got to be there for those folks. And at this point, for somebody that wants to buy something under $20,000 today, realistically, what they end up looking at is a 5 to 6 year old used car with about 70,000 miles on it. That's a far cry from a brand new car with 0 miles on it and a warranty. That's part of the problem, in my mind.
Yeah. Even the cars that we bought, I mean, we went through this thing with Car Edge where we're going to sell some of these newer cars. Yeah. I had some 2022s and they all had 20 to 30,000 miles. And every one of those, what I had in them was like anywhere from $19,000 to like $23,000. So if you have other dealers that are buying the cars, I mean, if they're going to make $3,000 plus on those cars, you're still not even getting close to 20 grand on those used cars that are 2 years old, 30,000 miles.
No, there was somebody, I think it was Edmunds, that did a survey, and literally today, for people to afford what they could afford 5 years ago, when it comes to used cars in the $15,000 to $20,000 price range, the age of the vehicle went from 4 years old and 50,000 miles to 6.5 years old with 71,000 miles on it. And it went from a payment of like $400 a month with $500 down to a payment of $550 a month with $6,000 down. So that's a huge swing. So it is. The manufacturers have just truly abandoned, for the most part, entry-level vehicles, and just said to those folks, we're sorry, we can't help you. Go buy a used car. That's what they're telling them.
Well, even on the used side of things, like the lower end of the market, I talked to, I got a bunch of buddies who they buy for like buy here, pay here dealers.
Okay.
And I asked them, now the buy here, pay here dealers are these dealers that are on the side of the road, on the side of the highway. They have $995 down on their cars. Yeah. And they hold their own notes. And whenever you don't pay the car, they'll come pick it up and they'll resell it, or they'll send it to auction. These are the king of repos, right?
They're like cars. They're like yo-yo cars. Okay. Yeah. They're on a yo-yo string. They sell it, they bring it back, they sell it again. The same thing. Yeah.
Well, anyway, going back to like affordability and stuff, I asked them, okay, all these prices are going up at auction. So what are you guys doing? Are you having to raise your monthly payments? You got to raise your down payments? And they're like, our customers can't afford to pay more down, and they definitely can't afford to pay more a month on these cars. So what they had to do, going through all this crazy time, and when our prices went up by 50% plus at auction, and so that means they have to charge more to their customer, and they have more risk associated in these cars, but they can't charge more on a monthly basis because these customers only have a certain amount of money. What they had to do is they had to extend these loans. So on a 2006 Hyundai Sonata with 150,000 miles, that loan that was 18 months is now stretched out to 3 years, 3.5 years, 4 years. And that just started like 2 years ago. So we've seen that go through the car market now, and it seems like that's weighing on the, even as much as trashy as repos are,
Yeah.
they're even getting trashier because this has happened in the car market. And it just comes down to affordability. It's hitting the top end of the market, and in the lower end of the market, it's hitting it in a different way. And that's in the form of sky high interest rates plus extending the loan. So they're paying so much money on interest, and most of them aren't even finishing the loan because the car won't even last that long.
Well, of course, and it's listen. There obviously there's a need for those type of dealers, and the unfortunate.
I don't know about need. I don't know. That's stretching it a little bit.
Well, I don't know. Do you want to be a buy here, pay here place?
No, but I'll sell a car for $2,000. That'll be fine. Somebody can own it.
Yeah, and what if they only have $500 down?
Well, I don't know if you can find a buy here, pay here dealer that only take $500 down now anyway. So
yeah, might be closer to 1,000.
Yeah. I can't get a car for 1,000, so I can. You can make your point there at that $1,000 line. That's where you can stand.
It is just a means to an end for people who don't have a lot of money or good credit to be able to get their hands on some form of transportation. And obviously the buy here pay here dealers are making money. They wouldn't be doing it otherwise. There is a market for that, a marketplace for that, and they're fulfilling that end of the marketplace. We need new car manufacturers to fulfill the low end of the new car marketplace, and it can't be at $40,000. It has to be in the $20,000 to $30,000 price range in order to encourage more people into buying cars again. Because you can't keep shrinking the pie, and expect and grow your business. I mean, how do you do that? Don't you need more customers?
Well, the thing that I've always heard from these guys is, and they all say the same thing, is that, okay, the good customers end up just paying for the bad customers, because they'll have customers that come in and they'll make 3 or 4 payments and then they're done. They'll trash the car, and it's a net loss for the dealer selling it, because now when they send it to auction, it doesn't bring hardly any money because the car's just been thrashed about in the last 3 or 4 months and it's just completely destroyed. So the customers that are actually making their payments and go all the way through the end of the loan and pay that full 30% interest on that car, and are paying $5,000 more than they would have had to pay if they would just been able to buy it cash. Those are the consumers that are paying for the bad ones, and that's just not the way it works in the buy here pay here round. That's the way all lending works, as far as what I understand.
Isn't that what allows Credit Acceptance Corporation to do what they do? They might have a repo rate of 10 or 11%, but the 89 or 90% that are paying are paying for the 10 or 11% that can't, and it's still profitable. So that's the good people always pay for the bad people. It's just that simple.
All right. Well, a lot of you might not realize this, but this is a brand new channel, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, and let us know what you want us to talk about.
Ooh, the art of the real. Should the deals be better from a dealership that has a ton of versus the same make a dealership with just a few models?
Well, we have to read the question out loud because
I got you. Should the deals be better from a dealership that has a ton of vehicles versus the same make at a dealership with just a few models? I'm thinking of buying a Mazda.
Art of the real, I think you already know the answer to that question. If there's a dealership that has way more than the other dealership, they have way more motivation to have less of what they have. So I would think you should be able to work a better deal at a dealership that has more inventory than one that has less inventory.
So I got a quick question for you. So let's talk about volume dealer versus like a small mom and pop kind of shop. Where the small mom and pop, they don't have to make as much money because they're just not a bigger operation. But you have your volume dealer who also doesn't have to make as much money because they're pushing so much volume through their system. If you were a consumer and you had two towns right next to each other, one was a big, massive volume dealership, and the other one was a very small mom and pop dealership, which one would you think would be able to give you the best deal, or where would you start?
Well, let me answer that by saying this. I would try to establish a relationship at the mom and pop dealership. And the reason I say that is the likelihood of the staff being there for a long period of time is much greater than at a big volume store where not only do they go through a lot of vehicles, they go through a lot of staff.
Right.
So I would try to, I appreciate the fact that there is more to a car deal than just the price, and that there is a value on the relationship that can be established at the dealership. So I personally would try and do business at the mom and pop store, explaining my rationale that I'd like to establish a relationship here. And if we can, I'm not buying one car, I'm buying multiple cars from you over the course of time because we have a relationship. And I suspect that I will be able to see most of the same faces every time I come in here, as opposed to at one of those high volume dealerships. So that's how I think I would start the conversation. And then I would ask them to be somewhat competitive. I'm not saying that they would necessarily have to match or beat the deal that I could get at a volume dealer, but they'd have to be close, and they could win me over by offering me things that the volume dealer might not, which is, well, knowing my name when I come in and taking care of me in a manner that would be beneficial to me if and when I were to ever have any problems.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. The Nissan store that my buddy runs, their group only has 2 stores. And at that Nissan store, they have sales staff that have been there for 25 years. So they have, and every time I go there, I mean, they know exactly who I am, and I have seen every one of their sales staff in the last year and a half, 2 years I've been going there, and they haven't changed. They're
Yeah.
still there, and I asked them a lot. I said, "There's a lot of turnover in commission sales for car salesmen. Why do you stay here?" He's like, they treat us good. So if they treat us good, I'm happy. I'm going to treat my customer right. So I have a lot more leeway than I would have at another store.
Exactly.
And we can do better for our customers because our management's good, because we're kind of like a close knit family here, and they're not worried about losing their job over small stuff.
Yeah. When I ran a Nissan store outside of Atlantic City, I realized then that you had to take good care of your customers because there wasn't any potential population growth to the east of us. Okay, it was really a limited population area. I didn't want to give people a reason to have to travel closer to Philadelphia to buy their Nissan um, than going to our store. So I was all about trying to establish relationships with my customers so that I could sell them more than one car. I tried to have the staff stay a long time. I had salespeople that were I was there for 12 years, from 2 weeks before we opened the store to when I left. It was a little over 12 years. And I had salespeople that had been with me the whole time that I was there. So to me, it was always important looking at the geographical area in which you live and then trying to establish how it is that you want to do business. Do I want to sell each person in the area one car, or do I want to sell a few people multiple cars? And the business decision I came to for the people that I worked for was I want to sell a bunch of people multiple cars. And that's what we did. And we knew the customers. They all knew us. We got you'd sell the husband and wife a car. When the kid turned 16, you'd sell them a car, and it was just the family stayed in the business with us, and and it grew. I mean, we were at, we started at nothing, and at one time we were in the top 200 Nissan dealers in the country. We ranked, I think it was second or third in customer satisfaction out of the top 200 stores, because we did it right, because the whole thing was built on relationships, and we valued those relationships, and apparently so did the customers, because they kept coming back.
Yeah, and I'll say from the used car dealer side, I'm a used car dealer. I, in my opinion, I would go the same route. I would rather you go to a store like mine
Yes.
than, I mean, it's biased. It sounds biased, right? But I'll give you the reasons why. But I'd rather you go to a store like mine that, I mean, we have 60, 70, 75 cars at a given time. We're a small used car dealer versus somewhere like a CarMax, who's going to have thousands and thousands of cars. You have more options there, obviously, but you're going to pay for those options. But if you can find a good used car dealer, then you're not going to have to pay a lot of the BS. You're going to be able to talk to them and see, okay, is the car good? Is the car not? And you have to gauge the car dealer. Obviously, if you find a good car dealer, yeah, that's where you want to do your business all the time, because it's so rare to find a car dealer that's going to tell you the truth about a car. But if you find that car dealer that will let you take your car to your mechanic and be able to check all that stuff off, then that's where I'd rather you do business. At the end of the day, I don't want you to buy from a car dealer regardless. I would rather you buy from an individual. But if you do go the car dealer route, I do think a small shop, you're going to have the potential to be treated more fairly than if you go to a really, really large dealership that's not going to care about you as a person at all.
If the only concern for the customer is the price and nothing else but the price, and their whole objective is to get the absolute lowest price they can ever get, then in most cases, I wasn't interested in that person as a customer. I wanted a customer who could appreciate what is. Oh, my battery just went dead.
I think I froze.
Yeah, no wonder I froze. So you can only have my voice. I wanted a customer that could appreciate what we could do for them in the event that there was ever an issue. And so that was the customer I wanted, and I would bend over backwards for that customer. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, tell every living person you know that they need to subscribe to Car Sense with Brandon and Ray.